Hi everyone, so we are delighted to welcome you back to the second PTS Trade news blog. If you've watched the first one, please don't forget to tell your friends if you've liked it, subscribe to the channel and do sign up for the trade newsletter. In this episode, we've got Mikko from MA Philatelics, who is a collector/dealer, and Charles Epting and Michael Cortese, aka Conversations with Philatelists. So this is pretty cool. But first of all, I'm going to hand you over to Suzanne Ray, who is going to give you the headline news from the PTS. Over to Suzanne.
Thanks very much, Isabel. I was just going through today everything that the PTS and Stampex has been up to since our last trade vlog, which was on the 1st of February. So we've had 6-7 weeks and it's been quite intense. So I'll try and be quick as possible. I guess one of the first things that happened after the last trade vlog was, particularly for our UK based dealers, but recognizing that a lot of international dealers are also impacted by this, is that Royal Mail announced that they would demonetize all Machin postage stamps as of the 31st of January 2023, which was a big hit for us, and therefore we spent a considerable amount of time over the last 6 to 7 weeks working with Royal Mail and also trying to communicate as much as possible with our members about the impacts of that. We actually just recently ran a survey for our members to help inform the Royal Mail trade process. So really excited that we got that through, and we provided a report to Royal Mail on Friday, just gone, helping them understand what the impact would be on our members and how we believe they can best help us with that. So that's been quite a bit this month. We even did a webinar with our members, which was great to see over 20 people involved in that as well earlier this month. We've invited we've had applications from probably about 15 members go through as well in the last 7 weeks. So really good to see so many people applying. I know Helen in the office is busy doing referencing and vetting processes on that. And thanks to the PTS Council for all of their help in making sure that those members are vetted. And we're doing our best very slowly, but we are getting there and making sure that we're promoting all of those new members through our social media accounts at the PTS and Stampex. So if you've not seen yourself yet and you've recently joined, hopefully you'll see yourself very soon, and do give us some content if you want us to help promote auctions or price lists or any new stock that you have in. We also ran a Meet the Chairman meeting in February, where Simon Carson, our PTS chairman, met with a number of traders, two who were thinking about joining the PTS. So a great opportunity to hear questions about what we're doing and hear feedback on what prospective new members think that we should be doing, both with the PTS itself and with the Stampex brand. We also launched our Collector Handbook 2022, thanks to Isabel in particular for getting that across the line. And the last Collector's Handbook in 2021 was launched for Stampex, and so it was quite a quick turnaround to get the 2022 one out, but that listed all of our PTS members and has some fantastic content. It's now available at the PTS.net, so if you haven't read that yet, do go and have a little look at the content there. We've also had over 20 members upgrade to gold membership with the PTS. That is a membership level that we have, which is basically a little bit more per month that members pay to help allow the PTS to do a bit more in terms of investing in the society itself, the hobby and the Stampex show. So a thank you to all those members that have upgraded to gold membership. It really does make a difference and has been able to invest more time and resource within the team. We've had lots of promotions go out again across at the PTS and Stampex. Isabel, I know, is running another series of videos, for example, with David McLaughlin, chairman of CAPEX, has also been involved in our blog. And we've seen a lot of members provide content for our social feeds. We've just recently ran a small campaign about PTS members doing good. We saw, for example, Katawiki, who's a PTS member, doing a great campaign to raise funds for a Ukraine humanitarian appeal by auctioning a number of items. So fantastic to see. We've also had Martello Philatelic Auctions provide information about what they do to do zero seller fees on auctions for their local hospice. And also PTS member Mint GB Stamps also provides stamps every year to the Great Ormond Street Hospital, Children's Hospital, raising thousands of pounds for good causes. So if you're a PTS member out there and you're doing good, help us, let us share those fantastic stories and raise awareness about your causes, and let us know. We also did a launch for International Women's Day, just again celebrating some of the fantastic female members that we have, and also collectors and associates that we work with. So again, thank you to Isabel for celebrating that. If you've not seen some of the great stories behind the women in philately, then do check out the blog at thepts.net. Oh, I haven't mentioned London 2022. That happened as well in the last 6 weeks, and we saw all 5 of us were there at London 2022, an 8-day show, once in a decade. Absolutely fantastic to see again another big show, not a Stampex, but very much like a Stampex, same venues, many of the same dealers who were there. The PTS had a stand at the show, so we were celebrating again our members selling Stampex smiler sheets. And we had a space where all of our PTS members could provide their price list, catalogs, leaflets, business cards on the stand. We were absolutely jam-packed full of fantastic content. And actually one of the things we're going to be doing this month is getting a lot of those electronic copies onto the PTS website to keep people able to read about some of the great offers that our members have. What else have we done? We've had a roundtable online about virtual Stampex. We haven't run a virtual Stampex in 2022, or so we don't have one planned for 2022 after running one in 2020 and 2021. Our next virtual Stampex will be in 2023. So we canvassed a lot of feedback from our members, from booth holders, and also from collectors about what they like to see. So we got some great content, and that seems like it's going to be a really fantastic show in 2023, which we're already starting to look at some software enhancements for that. A few other little things, I won't go into everything, but we've done, for example, we've provided an offer for a discount on insurance for our members. We've seen even more enhancements on the member directory online, and we have a lot of selfies going on to the PTS and Stampex feeds at the moment from the London 2022 wall. So hopefully a lot of our collectors and fellow traders out there have seen some familiar faces over the last few weeks, and we've got lots more to come. So I think that's everything we've been doing for the last 6 to 7 weeks. The key thing for the next month, which I will give you more updates on in the next trade vlog, will be around what the plans are for Stampex 2022, which is scheduled to take place at the Business Design Centre between the 29th of September and the 1st of October later this year, and we can't wait to see many of you there.
Wow, so gosh, thank you so much, Shazan. We have been so busy, it would seem, even if I do say so myself. So we are now going to chat to our guests, which is very exciting. I'm going to have a chat, we're going to have a chat with Mikko first, hopefully. And we just want to know, because you are a collector and also a dealer. Am I right in thinking that? It'd be good to find out a little bit about your business, how you set it up, why you chose Etsy to run your platform, that kind of thing.
That's a great question. I think that if one is a serious collector, at some point it becomes sort of exciting to also enter the trade side of things. What I've been collecting since I was about 5, 6, 7 years old, as most serious collectors. You have heard the story many times. But one tends to accumulate a lot of stuff, and then you begin to think, what are we going to do with that? So that's one thing that I did a long time ago when eBay first came along. I used to be active on eBay. Now it was perhaps because of the way I approached the eBay, it didn't really work out for me, so I came off the platform for a period of time. So I thought about this, and as a collector, you always want to have the best quality that you have a budget for. So I'm not saying that you have to spend the money. You think about the budget you have for, And I started thinking about opening up a platform, selling items to collectors that I would like to have in my own collection. And I think that's the key point, because at the end of the day, the stamp business or any business is highly subjective, and we need to think in terms of what it is that we are selling, and would I like to have that in my own album. And one of my first points of call was to PTS. PTS is the platform or the organization that gives me credibility to be part of the community, and that's very important. So if I'm part of the PTS has gone through a process of qualifying me. So what I'm selling is of the grade that is acceptable as a professional standard. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think is really interesting, as you are a collector, I mean, how do you actually sell these things? Because obviously you must love them as well. So therefore, is it hard to give them away as such? Do you think, oh God, I'm not selling that this week?
You're not giving them away, but at the end of the day, I actually have a, if I may show it, when I start collecting this, I aspire to have one of these as a very young boy. It is a 1939 Red Cross Finland mint never hinge set. It's not very expensive, but it was my ambition to have one of those. I'm very happy to sell it on because I have handled that. To me, possessing something and then being able to pass it on to somebody else who appreciates it as well is part of the satisfaction of being a trader.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's nice mentality to think about. And you sell on Etsy, which I thought was quite unusual for sort of like a core philatelic business, yeah. I would say. I mean, Suzanne obviously sells on Etsy as well, but obviously from a more art position, I can see why that would fit onto the platform. So how do you find Etsy for the collectible side of things?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. It's a mixed bag. What I like about the Etsy is the back end of the platform. I get my advertising done there. I get some great data. I get some great metric stats, who's buying, where they're buying, and so on. Of course, the only thing I have, or the criticism I have with Etsy, is not really a philatelic platform by any means. So what I have done is that I have a website that is sitting on top of Etsy. So I drive the traffic through the website, and the back end is handled, or the boiler room is done in Etsy.
Yeah.
Of course, the concern is then the fee structure that the Etsy has. So, but all in all, I get the marketing done through Etsy quite well. So I'm 60-40 at the moment.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's a really interesting one, because I've been using Etsy for a number of years, and it is much more craft market in my sphere. But I am seeing more and more philatelic content on there, and I think, like you said, Mikko, it's a lot of it is just the power of the marketing that sits behind Etsy. I mean, I'm sure that Michael's got a lot more information around the power of eBay as well, and obviously the work that we do with eBay. We see a lot more philatelic traffic go through that platform than Etsy, but maybe it's something we need to speak to Etsy about, is helping them grow the credibility of their postage stamps category, because it is a very user-friendly place to be, and I'm sure that many of our viewers have tested the water in that space as well. It'll be interesting to hear if it is an area that more of our dealers.
Can I make one observation? And then this is again, very, very subjective. The feedback I get on Etsy is nicer as a dealer, and so the clientele that sits on Etsy who buy from me, they tend to be more in the United States and North America than in the UK, because I specialize in Scandinavia. It seems to be the client base seems to be easier to manage than the eBay client base. But that is my subjective observation.
Yeah, I would agree with that as a subjective comment as well, that sometimes eBay can be a difficult place with some customers just being difficult, but at least they've got the backup of the platform. And I know some people will prefer to shop on an eBay or an Etsy or a Hipstamp or a Delcamp, because they have the protection of the platform behind them. But obviously what we're trying to do is make sure that if people see the PTS Shield, they know that if they're on a website that's not on one of these platforms and it is a standalone website, that it can be a dealer that people can trust. They don't have to worry that that person hasn't been vetted and isn't a safe place to buy. So if a viewer if a collector is looking at an independent website and it has the PTS Shield, then I think that's a good thing to have. And Mikko, you mentioned that with you selling Scandinavia, that is a big US market. Is that your biggest market for Scandinavia collectors, or so where are your pockets? A lot of Scandinavian customers?
I think the Scandinavian customers tend to deal within Scandinavia. The UK, there used to be a very active Scandinavian Philatelic society. I'm not quite sure what's happening with them at the moment, but as tends to happen in this trade, as my colleagues can probably attest, is that people get older, and things tend to fall off the wayside a bit. But of course, the US market is massive. And in the US, you have pockets of Scandinavian communities from Michigan to Minnesota to Wisconsin to Illinois, you name it. And I think that the main market I find is in the US. The other good thing about Etsy, of course, if I may just carry on a bit longer, is that I spend my time in the UK and also on the East Coast of the United States. So I can actually take my stock, what is on Etsy, and then just flip the platform over to a US site. So right. I can do two countries simultaneously, or on the same platform.
Right. You mean your currency? So your currency and all your shipping and everything.
Correct.
Wow.
Correct.
Interesting.
That's great. I hadn't appreciated Etsy did that actually.
Yeah.
We'll come back to you in a few minutes, Mikko. Should we just have a quick chat now with Michael and Charles? I am actually super excited about this because I feel like we're on the other side, whereas normally Michael and Charles are like, Suzanne, Isabel, let's ask you loads of questions. And I'm like, now I feel like I can just ask you loads of questions. I mean, thank you so much for joining us, by the way. And
always, yeah.
Just tell us, I mean, like Conversations with Philatelists is so cool. It's now what, like a year and a bit old?
We're coming up on
2 years as of June or July, I think.
Oh, amazing. So take us back 2 years. Gosh, I can't believe it's 2 years old. How did the idea come about?
Michael, I will let you talk because you were actually the one who had the idea. So why don't you tell us how you came up with it, and then I'll tell everyone how you reached out to me.
All right, yeah. So I mean, things were closing down. We travel a lot, as everyone does in this business. Things were closing down. I wasn't getting to talk to people at shows, dealers, collectors, and everything like that, and missing that in-person connection. And I kind of had a thought, as things were closing down, Charles and I were getting even busier as people saw in the hobby. Prices were spiking. People coming into the hobby for the first time were coming back to it from a long time. And so we weren't getting any more free time. And I thought to myself, well, why don't I give us something even more to do that would be more time consuming, but something that we are missing out on. And why don't we just try and connect back to the people that we're not getting to talk to?
I will also add that Michael was a podcast aficionado at the time. I had never listened to a podcast in my life. I had missed the boat on that one. So I was driving to pick up a stamp collection on Long Island. Michael, you sent me a Facebook message. We knew each other, from the Young Philatelic Leaders Fellowship that we were a part of. We'd seen each other at shows. Michael and his wife had visited me at my office in New York. So we were aware of one another, and I would say acquaintances, if not friends yet. And you Facebook messaged me and said, "Hey, do you have time for a quick phone call?" I was in the car. I said, "Sure, let's chat." Had no idea what it was about. You pitched the idea of a Philatelic podcast to me. As you said, we were, on the one hand, at least for myself, I couldn't get to the office every single day because of how New York was locked down. So I kept trying to convince myself that I would have free time to take on projects I'd been putting on the back burner. As Michael explained, that was not the case, and we found ourselves busier than ever, but needing an outlet, needing some way to keep in touch with people, just to talk to each other, to keep, I don't know about you, Michael, but for me, it was a way to have this sort of regularity every week. We're going to do this. It kept me from going stir crazy or developing cabin fever. So yeah, it was born out of not being able to travel, not being able to see clients face to face. I had to learn what a podcast was before I jumped into doing one every week. But I couldn't be more happy that Michael reached out to me that fateful day early in the pandemic. And here we are nearly 2 years later, still doing it.
And you must have met so many more people. I feel like you've had lots of people contact you to speak to you, as well as you obviously reaching out to other people. So you must have met with more people than you could ever imagine, really, within the philatelic world.
Yes, it was fun early on. We had a short list of people who we knew personally that we could sort of rely on to, people I knew would respond to an email. So Alex Hyman, who was responsible for the fellowship that we were a part of, was our first guest. And after that, it was other collectors, Wade Soddy and Scott English from the APS, and just other people who, again, I knew would pick up the phone if we called. But you're right, very quickly, it turned into something where we were getting emails and tweets, and every guest, I feel like, had 2 or 3 people they wanted to recommend as a guest. So it just sort of exponentially expanded until it got to the point where we were talking to people that not only we had never met, but we'd never heard of, because they're not a part of the hobby. They're not dealers, they're not collectors. They're college professors or librarians or all sorts of, professions that are tangentially related to the hobby. We really expanded our scope from people we were already friends with to really being able to make new, contacts and new acquaintances.
Amazing. And how do you manage that now? So like, how many requests do you get a week? Just out of interest.
Maybe 2 or 3 or 4, which is more than we can, definitely more than we can handle a week.
It's also sort of feast or famine. I feel like we'll get like 5 requests at once and then nothing for 2 weeks and we're scrambling. So I don't know what it is, but it's very cyclical. And I never would have thought that Twitter, for example, would have such a big impact on. We've interviewed people that we followed on Twitter, which is just such a weird 21st century thing to happen.
Thing to say.
Let's just mention Twitter for a minute, because I know that, Mikko, you're also on Twitter. I'm feeling like in the last 2 to 3 months, Twitter in the philatelic community is growing way quicker, and there's way more activity on there than there are across Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok's another one. But previously we would grow quite quickly on Facebook and Instagram, whereas Twitter just feels like it's going mad at the moment. Is that just me, or are you guys feeling that?
No, I'm definitely seeing that too. Oh, go ahead.
No, Michael, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, yeah, I completely agree. Definitely seeing that too all around, and a lot more people chiming in, and a lot more people signing up and saying that, you know, I've created this account, this is what I'm gonna do. I've created this account, this is what I'm gonna do. It's a lot more people using it to connect, that are discovering it through different channels.
Yeah, I think you're right, Michael, and Suzanne. I think the Twitter is growing. It's also a very nice community. The one thing I would say about the social media is that it is a long haul. It is a long-term commitment. So if I look at the feed on Etsy, how many conversions I have or visits from social media, it's actually quite low. A lot of people piggybacking, they just like your Instagram post, or they like your tweet post, but the conversion rate into your site is fairly low.
Yeah, I mean, we won't give too much away, but we're PTS members will all be invited. We'll put the invitation out in the PTS newsletter this month, but in April we're going to do a session about social media, and try to get some of those conversion rates up, because I agree with you. I don't think Twitch is great for sales conversions, but other platforms are a bit better for sales. But Twitter certainly feels like, I mean, I think I put out something the day basically saying it's almost like a forum. If I've got a question to ask, or even if I want someone to help me describe something, price something, if I ask it on Twitter, I'm getting response really quickly, and knowledgeable responses from fellow dealers, members, collectors. So it's finding a very interesting place to spend time at the moment. But also a little bit about growing social media, and the advantage of growing quality over quantity, I think, is going to be kind of something we also talk about.
I was just going to ask from a business point of view, because I know Charles, HR Harmer, are they? I don't know the social media channels that you're on, but do you find that, because obviously slightly different from what Mikko's running?
Right. So for me, Philatelic Twitter and Instagram has been a personal thing up until now. It's just been, my life, plus whenever I come across a cool cover or something that I'm selling. And that's something that my staff and I are working to sort of revamp right now. We just hired a new marketing manager named Alyssa, and my colleague Alice, and the three of us are in the middle of a social media rollout where we're going to be on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and I can't remember if we've committed to TikTok or not. That's the one that we're on the fence about. But certainly the other three, we look at whether it's Chris Green and his social media presence, or Stanley Gibbons with the wonderful videos that George and Victoria do. We look to these sorts of companies for inspiration, and it's definitely something we want to start exploring more. With auctions, like we're holding, it's tough to know whether there's going to be that much of a direct cause and effect, whether somebody's going to see a tweet and then go bid on a covered auction, because I feel like the at least the perceived barrier to entry with auction is quite high, and that's something we're working to break down. And you can buy great covers at auction for we tend to highlight the things that sell for $100,000-$200,000, but there's plenty of bargains to be had as well. So we're looking at how to again use social media to encourage people to just look into bidding at auction rather than the show circuit or dealers. I think auctions are more accessible than people might think. But the other thing, obviously, is just for the greater good of the hobby. I think an educated collector base benefits everyone. Yeah. And if we can share interesting stories about things we're working on, or if we can share insights into what the market is doing at a particular time, even if that doesn't directly result in more business for us, it might benefit somebody else down the line. And again, just the more educated people are and the more knowledgeable people are, that's going to benefit all of us, on this call right now.
Absolutely, it's that ripple effect, isn't it? And it is the market, it's the brand awareness. You know, Isabel and I will be like, all right, who can we invite to the trade blog, or who can we invite to do some, you know, a blog on the newsletter? And of course, obviously, those first brands that come to your head, we don't do this because we've got our members and we look after everybody, but obviously the first brands that always come to your head are those that you see every day. And you see them every day because we're users of social media, both reading and pushing out, and we're seeing, and it's amazing how you know, frequent content. I mean, Mikko's a great example. MA Philatelics was a brand I was so aware of before we even discussed about it, joining and that kind of thing.
And Michael, from your point of view, what social media from Noble Spirit, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what Charles said and Suzanne. It's being top of mind, but it's also about telling people, you know, what's out there, what's available. We focus more. We have our Noble Spirit, which social media, which we kind of put out things that we're auctioning, and we're not doing it specifically to get people to click on those things and bid on them, but it's just more of a, hey, this is what we're working on at the time. But we focus, for social media at least, a lot more on our kind of side venture, Stamp Market Index, where we're telling people prices realized of items on eBay, and it's the daily highest priced item on eBay for the previous day. So that's more of a kind of informative. That's not trying to get anybody to buy anything. That's saying, yesterday, this is what happened, and it's more about validating the marketplace as a legitimate marketplace that sells high-priced items. So that's here what we're more focused on using social media for, is legitimizing marketplaces and dealers and items and everything like that.
So interesting. It's got so many different uses, hasn't it, social media? I'm actually just doing a quick platform review on Pinterest for Philatelics. Anyone use Pinterest? No.
I can't say that I do.
It's such a
not yet. I've been looking at that.
Massive platform, and I hear really good things. Mikko, I'm doing a bit of a review on it, so I will send you the information, because I think it's one of these platforms that we should definitely be using more. I just think it fits very, very well in with the collectible world, if I'm honest with you. I think it does. There's a lot of synergies there.
So if I may comment on that, I don't use it. I don't have a Pinterest or anything, but sometimes when I'm looking up, Googling weird items that we come across, Charles discovered, he was at our office, about a month ago, and we were going through a collection of worldwide Cinderellas, and in there was a U.S. book, and Charles discovered in there the Crane's chocolate label. And in Googling it to look for other prices realized, one of the top hits was somebody had pinned an item. They'd taken a photo and they'd pinned it. So there were 3 links. 2 of them were specialists talking about how rare these items are. And then one of them, the third one, was just some random person pinning a photo of that really rare 5-known stamp. It was Cinderella.
Crazy. That is crazy.
I was just talking today about what software exists for holding collections online. So taking photos of your stamps and having them in an online catalogue. And there's lots of different products out there. But that's a really interesting thing for people who are already using Pinterest for other things, like what's my new cutlery set going to be, or whatever people do on. There's lots of great creative things on Pinterest to also be holding copies of their collection or their favorite stamps. I love that. Okay, Isabel, let's get that out to Pete. Let's get that out to Pete.
Yeah. And it was like so cool, because you can do like sector specific things. So we could have like GB and like split it by members and things like that. There's so many things we can do. Great, good chat. Totally lost my train of thought.
So I'll just pick up on the stamp market index. I find the stamp market index, I mean, I love it. I'm addicted, and it's a bit like I'm still addicted to looking at other things like COVID numbers or the price of heating oil. I'm also addicted to the stamp market index. It's just like number of bids and the prices and the quality, as you said. I think it's fantastic. And And obviously for you guys at Noble Spirit, I mean, eBay is such a big part of your business. And I saw, you know, I just wanted to, if you to explain a little bit about what you're doing at the moment with some of those big auctions that you're doing, Michael, where you're giving people kind of notice, and then they've obviously got 2 days or 10 days or whatever to bid. Can you just explain that a little bit for people out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we back in 2008 developed our own proprietary software that allows us to list on eBay. So we don't use, I think they discontinued it now, but InkFrog, Turbo Lister, or eBay or anything like that. We use a software we developed called Meridian, and we have our own programmers that we can kind of tinker with the software and say if we want this changed, we want that, so we can have kind of oversight over the entire software. And about a year and a half ago, we had the idea to create an actual digital catalog where we could put items that we're listing in kind of a bucket, if you will, and set them aside for a later date, create a display where people can download the PDF of the display, and we can write actual descriptions for the items, say what the starting price is and everything like that, and then link to that catalog of items so that people can see ahead of time this is going to be on eBay in a month and a half. Just like the traditional auctions give a catalog of lead time, these are purely digital catalogs. They're not physical. You know, we're tinkering with the idea of, we've got a catalog coming up of postal history that we're thinking about printing physical catalogs for. But just to show people what will be coming in the future and act more like an actual auction. Then how we prepare for those auctions is we don't list anything that would compete with anything on that other day. So we've got an auction right now of US material, and it's selling on those 2 days, and we've got nothing else selling on those 2 days except for what's in that auction. We prepare it that way, so everybody knows on March 28th we have 300 items ending, and they're from this catalog. And then on the 29th, same thing. And then back to the 30th, we go back to our regular eBay listings.
Wow.
But we have specific days that we set aside for these auction catalogs that people know. If I go to eBay and type in Noble Spirit, I know that I'm only going to find the catalog on those days.
That's amazing. So you can literally turn on and off or swap over your eBay capabilities. That's very cool.
Yeah.
And that's all down to the technology that you've developed.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Amazing. Cool.
And how many items would you normally have though? Just let's do a little bit of a...
So this one, we've got about 600. We've had smaller ones where we've just had 75 and it's just 1 day. But it can be anything. The software allows us to list, you know, we could have 100,000 items in an auction and just run it over the course of a month. It doesn't, there's no limit because we control the software.
Right. So good, so creative. And just on that, what kind of percentage of your customers are US based, with you guys being US based, eBay being a global platform? What kind of percentage, where are your big customer bases, and then where are your big consignments? Are you still mostly getting consignments from, or only getting consignments from the US, or are you seeing kind of growth globally there as well?
Yeah, so consignments, it's almost entirely US. I think in the past 5 years, we've only had 1 or 2 outside of the US as far as consignments. But customers buying material, I'd say it's only about 55, maybe 60% US. And then some of our biggest purchases are from Great Britain, Australia, France, Germany, and Canada would probably, after US, I think it would go Canada, then Great Britain, France, Australia. You know, we ship so much to Australia. It's just crazy, which is wild because the prices to ship to Australia are almost as much as the stamps that the people are buying. But yeah,
that is.
And what are there any countries you're seeing particular growth in, or is it just all steadily?
It's pretty steady. Yeah. I mean, as far as China goes, they only buy China, so we don't ship to China unless it's China because they're not buying anything other than that. But as far as the other countries go, I mean, Great Britain, we ship everything. France, we ship everything. Other countries don't kind of discriminate on what they're collecting, if you will.
Yeah, right.
So, Charles, you just mentioned earlier that you just hired a marketing director or person. And so what are we expecting to see from HR Harmer? Are you in a sort of like a growth period, or are you, what's to come? What's 2022 looking like?
We are. So we're sort of at a very exciting point, I think. One of the things that has frustrated me, I joined HR Harmer 6 years ago, just about. And one of the, we've made a lot of growth. We moved to New York from Southern California. We've held some incredible sales. I've been thrilled with the trajectory of the business over that time. The biggest sticking point for me has been our website. Is something that was inherited by myself, and it's it would have been great a number of years ago, but it's just become sort of the one piece of the puzzle for us that's been lagging behind our growth otherwise. So that's one of the big things we're going to be rolling out in the next. I had a Zoom call with the developers this morning. They promised me a week. I'm a bit skeptical of that timeline, but certainly before our next auction, which is going to be June 21st through 23rd. So we're gearing up for this big June sale, and as part of the rollout for that, it's going to be a new website, much more user-friendly, much more, a lot more data contained on it. It'll be a much better resource for collectors looking to see things from our archives and see things from past sales. It'll be just a much cleaner, more aesthetically pleasing experience overall. And like I said, Alyssa joined our team. I hired Allison as my other colleague. She joined HR Harmer about a year ago now. She's been handling a lot of the back office stuff up until now. And she came to me not too long ago and said, as much as I love working for this company, I really want to learn about stamps. And I don't think it's fair that I come into the office every day and don't know what it is we're selling. So I was unbelievably excited that she expressed a desire to explore the Philatelic side of things. So Allison has started doing some of our describing for the June sale, which is incredible to me. Alyssa is our marketing manager. She's doing, again, social media, advertising, a lot of the content for the website. So having this new team built up around me was one of the biggest difficulties of moving to New York, was having to sort of rebuild from the ground up. And I couldn't feel more excited to have such an energetic, excited, competent team with me. So I would say that between now and our June sale, there's a lot of great things happening. And it's a fun place for Harmer to be in.
Amazing. How exciting.
And
they're younger than me, which is fun as well.
Well, this is what I was going to say. When you get these auction houses like yourselves that are investing in people, because it's like a collector or somebody who's never collected before wants to see the world of stamps. There should be a place for them to find a home in stamp collecting. And if you start working for an auction house, whatever you're doing, I imagine many people think, I wonder if I can have a job there actually doing the Philatelic stuff. So that's just fantastic news. And how much I guess, I don't want to say support or coaching or like guidance do you get from being part of the Global Philatelic Network? Or is there kind of standards that set across all of the network, or can you do pretty much whatever you like? How does that work?
Being a part, the Global Philatelic Network, for people who don't know, is a group of 5 auction houses around the world. There's John Bull in Hong Kong, Heinrich Kohler in Germany, Corin Fila is in both Switzerland and the Netherlands, and ourselves, HR Harmer, in New York City. And it really is the best of both worlds, because there are a lot of administrative, day-to-day operations that are standardized. From the back office, we, again, that's sort of standard across the group. A lot of the, just the minutia and the administrative tasks are taken care of globally, which is great. We also have catalog designers who are wonderful, and they do the catalogs for 4 of the 5 companies. So they sort of travel around the world, ping-ponging between whatever company is doing the formatting for their catalog. So having that sort of support and that sort of network and sort of safety net is really wonderful, while also being allowed to do things our own way. The American auction scene is very different from the British or German or Asian auction scenes. So we do have a high degree of autonomy as well. We get to, do things that we think are best for the American market, while also relying on the guidance and expertise of people around the globe. If I get a collection of Chinese stamps in, I can WhatsApp my colleagues in Hong Kong. They get back to me within minutes, and I know exactly what's what. Same with Germany. It really is, again, like I said earlier, the best of both worlds to have, on the one hand, this great American legacy and heritage that we are preserving, but also to have, dozens of colleagues around the world that I know have my back and I've got theirs. That's a really nice dynamic to have to to be able to lean on them. So it's being a part of the Global Philatelic Network is just a real privilege for HR Harmer.
Right.
I'd love to hear a bit more about the differences in the auction scenes. Like, why is the American auction scene so different from the GB auction scene?
So I think the biggest difference, at least with continental Europe, and I haven't attended an auction in GB yet, but based on what I've seen in the Netherlands and Switzerland and Germany, I'm sure it's geographical because the United States is so huge, but we don't get people attending our auctions in person anymore. We're lucky if we get 2 or 3 people to show up, and people will come for the weeks leading up to it to view lots and everything. But then I speak to at Heinrich Kohler, they have dozens of people come and view for days and days at a time, and the auction room is still quite crowded, and everybody gets dinner afterwards, and it's much more of an old school event over there. Whereas in the States, my colleagues went to a Robert A. Siegel auction recently. They were the only 2 in the room, and yet prices are still through the roof because the phones and the internet and the agents still make it so easy. So I think this is just a function of America being so large. Our customers, if we have a customer in California, that's much further than Great Britain to Spain or France or something. Yet we're all part of the same country. So I think that's one of the biggest differences that we have to face, is that everything is moving more online. Everything's becoming more digital. I look at pictures of our auctions from the 1960s where the room is packed with people, very nicely dressed, and it's never going to be that again. I've sort of had to reckon and cope with that, but it's okay because, again, as long as the items are selling for great prices, I'm certainly not one to complain. But it's little things like that where just the logistics of holding an auction and the expectations of attendance and things like that. In Germany, they've got a number of auction agents. In the US, we've just got 2 main auction agents. So it's again, these little things that you don't really notice or grasp until you're really paying attention to what's going on. So GB has, I would say, as many major auction houses, if not more, as the US, and you're a much smaller country than we are, both physically and population wise. So it's things like that I think are interesting and give each company their own real regional flavor. I hear stories about my colleagues in Hong Kong, and I hope to attend one of their auctions someday because it sounds like a completely different experience than what I've experienced, what I've seen firsthand on the continent or in the States.
Amazing.
And when was the last time, Mikko, you were in an auction room, physically in an auction room?
When was that? Oh gosh. Oh, must be 10 years ago.
Oh wow.
So Charles is moving the same way in the UK as well. And I haven't been to a single auction room in Scandinavia ever. So
it's become so easy. You look at high resolution scans and you get a phone call or go online and as much as I lament the death of physical auctions, it makes perfect sense why everyone is trending that way. I don't blame anyone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So interesting.
Shame, but that's what it is.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds great going out for dinner afterwards. I mean,
just
get to spend loads of money and then go for dinner. I mean, who wouldn't love that? Oh well, Suzanne, have you got any other questions for any of our panel?
No, I guess just I mean, I know that Mikko, and in particular, I know that Michael and Charles are as well, but really keen to be promoting the hobby in any way we can and boost the hobby with new audiences or audiences that maybe left the hobby one time decades ago potentially, and how do we bring them back? I don't know if you want to share any thoughts on what you're doing, what you think the PTS could be doing, or what you think other trades, other dealers and auction houses could be doing to help boost that.
I think the one thing I'm obviously quite different from my 2 colleagues here is that dealing is not a full-time occupation for me. So I actually come here from the hobby perspective and then carrying that on. And that's why I spend quite a bit of time on social media. And I talk to people. And today it was a great example. There was somebody followed me on Twitter, and she said, I know nothing about stamps, and here's a stamp. What's the value of that? And I wrote back to her and said, let's start thinking about the quality, and then go from there. And do get in touch with me if you want to have more information. So I take my role as a PTS member to also carry the hobby forward, and just bringing new people in. Of course, we all want to make a profit as well. Do not take me wrong, but that's the long-term investment from my side into the PTS and the philatelic community and the hobby.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Charles, Michael, any?
It's become sort of cliche and trite at this point to talk about the importance of bringing things online. But I love how quickly the PTS adapted to virtual Stampex, doing things like this. I just got an email from the Collectors Club of New York. Their meeting is tomorrow night. It's just fun. I think this is what the hobby needed to do eventually. I think this is the way things were inevitably heading, and it all ties into the conversation about differences in auctions now versus 20 years ago. It's the same with club meetings. It's the same with dealer advocacy groups. It's it really is sort of this trend across the hobby. I think it would have gotten there eventually. I think that without the pandemic, we all may have been having this exact conversation in a couple of years. But I think the fact that we're having it right now, and the fact that people could attend virtual Stampex from around the world, and I can tweet that I'm in London 2022, and people can tweet back that I connected with people at the show via Twitter. I think all of that is the silver lining to have come out of the last 2 years. I think it really has forced a lot of people to adapt or learn new things, and I think that's wonderful. And that's what groups like the PTS that are really at the forefront of that. I think it's wonderful to try and make lemonade out of the lemons life has given us.
Thanks, Charles.
I'd have to say, I agree completely with what they both just said, but the fundamentals in education as well. I absolutely loved the idea of the youth auction that the PTS had at Stampex, teaching people to be comfortable with bidding at auction and doing something that's so vital to maintain the hobby. These auction houses and dealers are the backbone of a lot of the industry, because they, without being able to buy or sell material, everything kind of just dries up. But teaching children who may be excited about stamps how to buy the stamps that they're excited about is absolutely vital. So I loved that the youth auction that you guys had at Stampex, and I really hope you continue
yeah, well, hopefully we will. It's a Stamp Active is the charity that runs that, who are a PTS member, and just having a few email exchanges with them the last week, making sure that we can get them the space that they need within the youth zone for that. So, but I'm just actually stalking you now on Mikko on Twitter and looking at this comment that you've made to this person and giving them the information about looking at condition and what the SG catalog number is. And this is one of the things that I think is great about technology, because we now don't have as many stamp shops on the high street. When I was little, I would go down to my stamp shop and I would go and ask questions when I was 8 years old, 10 years old. And PTS member Bob Murray used to help me. He's still a member now. His shop is still just down the road from my mum and dad's house. But he, would spend as much time as I want. I used to sit on the floor in the stamp shop with bags of stamps, looking through them, and he would just patiently help me with any questions I had. And we don't necessarily have that facility without having things like the youth zone at Stampex. But when we can use technology to comment and to help and to keep that line of communication going with collectors, new collectors, young collectors, or people just exploring new areas to collect in themselves, And I think it's fantastic, and that's in particular a role that I think we all have as stewards of this, to be able to keep that conversation going. So that's great. And I'm going to stalk all of your tweets and replies on Twitter now. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I just want to say thank you so much. Hopefully everyone who's watching has really enjoyed this episode. I have. And thank you so much to you all for attending. It's been wonderful to have you all here, and what a great discussion.
Thank you both for having us. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks very much. So Mikko, you're on MAPhilatelics.com for anybody who's interested in browsing some beautiful Scandinavian material. Harmer, new website, HR Harmer, is called
HRHarmer.com still. It'll be the same URL.
And Michael?
Just noblespirit.com.
.com. Easy. Very easy. Okay. Thanks very much, guys. Pleasure to speak to you. Thanks for all your time.
You guys
and we'll see you all soon.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Bye.